So this is the night of Oshana Raba. And Oshana Raba is a day like no other. And this is a night like no other. It is a combination of Yomim Neroim on one hand, days of awe, and days of joy. So in the Jewish calendar, there are actually two different sets of Yomim Tovim, of Mo'adei Yisrael. We have the Sholosh Regolim, Pesach, Shavuos, and culminating in Sukkot. Sholosh Regolim are days of joy. V'sumachto b'chagecha. And the other set is Yomim Neroim. We don't say Hallel on the Yomim Neroim, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And the Rambam explains why. The Rambam writes in Hilchas Lulav, Ein oimerim Hallel b'Rosh Hashanah v'Yom Kippurim. We don't say Hallel on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Lefi she'ein elu yomim shel simchu yisero, elu shel yiru v'fachad. These are not days of excessive joy, but rather days of awe and fright. And that is why we don't say Hallel. So the Sholosh Regolim are days to rejoice. Yomim Neroim are days of atonement, of tshuva, of tefillah. What is Hoshana Rabbah? Seems to be a combination. On one hand, we say Hallel, and it is the only day we say Hallel with a kittel. As part of our tefillahs tomorrow is in the tunes of Yomim Neroim. In my shul, our minig is, after each of the 7 akofas, we blow the shofar, Tashrat, Tashat, Tarat. And that is the minig of Dinov, my great Rebbe, the Kloisenberger Rebbe. That was his minig, and I implemented that minig in my shul. So this is a day like no other. On one hand, it's still Chalamoid Sukkot. And the Rambam writes about Sukkot, Afar pi shekol hamoedim mitzvah l'smoach behem, b'yamei chag eita sham simcha yesera. And there was more simcha and more joy in the Beis Hamikdash Sukkot than any other day of the year. So Oshana Rabbah is still Chol HaMoed Sukkot. And tomorrow, yes, we do say Hallel. Hallel together with Kiyas Shofar. Never do these two come together. So we say the trill of Zman Simchoseinu in the Nusach of Rosh Hashanah. So what is Hoshana Rabbah? The Zohar writes, Tikkun HaZohar, Tikkun Yud, any mitzvah that is not performed b'dechilu urechimu doesn't go up to the heavens. The chilu urechimu in Aramaic is ahava and yira. So in Brachas Lamed Hey we find the machloikes. When are we called and defined as bonim lemokim, and when are they defined as avodim lemokim? Because in Torah Shabbal Peh, in Tanakh, sometimes we're called the Kodesh Baruch Hu's children. Bonim atem l'Hashem Elokeichem. And sometimes we are defined as avodim. Even Moshe Rabbeinu is defined as Eved Hashem. So in Bavli and Masechet Brochos there's a machloikis. Reb Meir says, "Bein oisim retzono shel mokim, ubein kishe'ein oisim retzono shel mokim." We are always called bonim. We are always a Kodesh Baruch Hu's children. Sometimes we're naughty, then we're naughty children, but we're always his children. Rabbi Yehuda says no. בזמן שעושים רצונו של מוקוים קרויים בונים, בזמן שאין עושים רצונו של מוקוים קרויים עבודים. When we serve a Kodesh Baruch Hu as we should, we are defined as a Kodesh Baruch Hu's children. When we go astray, we are servants. And then the Zohar comes along in Parshas Bahar, and the Zohar says, there is no stira, no contradiction between being bonim and being avodim. We are always bonim, and we are always avodim. And these two are not contradictory in any way. We love HaKadosh Baruch Hu because we are His children. We are in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu because we are His servants. So a Jew, a Yid, should always feel as a Kodesh Baruch Hu's service and as a Kodesh Baruch Hu's child. In all our tefillas in the Yomim Neroim, we turn to a Kodesh Baruch Hu in Jewish language, Avinu Malkeinu. And we say, Im kebonim, im ka'avodim. So bonim va'avodim are not contradictory at all according to the Zohar. Bonim va'avodim reflect the two fundamentals of our relationship with the Kodesh Baruch Hu, which is the chilu urechimu, ahavo aniyera, simcha aniyera. And the only day in which these two, at their fullest, come together is Hoshana Rabbah. So Tishrei is the most magnificent month of the Jewish calendar. Yerechu Eisonim, and Chazal define Eitan b'mitzvahs. And there must be a system to the Yomim Tovim of Chodesh Tishrei. Starting off with Rosh Hashanah and coming to a climax on Yom Kippur. So probably we spoke about the Salat in Yeshiva. Rosh Hashanah is primarily about Malchus. We don't say Vidui on Rosh Hashanah. We have time to say Vidui on Yom Kippur. But it is clear that Yom Rosh Hashanah is a day of tshuva. It is the very first of Aseres Yemei Tshuva. And just a few moments ago I quoted the Rambam. The Rambam says we don't say Halal neither on Rosh Hashanah nor on Yom Kippur. Lefi she'ein elu yomim shel simcha yesera, elu shel yira v'fachad. So the Rambam relates in exactly the same way, the same language to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Rosh Hashanah is about Malchus. Malchus is the foundation of tshuva. It is the foundation of Avodas Hashem. The Mishnah says in Brochus Yud Gimel, Lamu kodme parsha Shema le parshas v'hoyu im Shemoya. The first parsha of Kriya Shema is Shema Yisrael v'yohavto. The second one is v'hoyu im Shemoya tishma'u. So the Mishnah says, Sheyekabel al atzmo ol malchus shemayim v'achar kach mekabel al atzmo ol mitzvot. Before getting into details, first of all, Kabbalas ol malchus shemayim, which means the awareness, the recognition that we are here for a purpose. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the sovereign. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is king, and we are here to serve. And only then get into details. And that is why the first parsha is Parsha Shema, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Yekabel al atzmo ol malchus shemayim, and only then Yekabel al atzmo ol mitzvahs. And the same principle goes to tshuva as well. So before we go into details, and before we start banging away al chet, Rosh Hashanah is Malchus. The recognition, the awareness, we're here for a purpose. We are here to serve. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is king, and we are here to adhere to his rules. So Rosh Hashanah Malchus is not detached from Yom Kippur. It directly leads to Yom Kippur. Both Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur are fundamentally about Yira. And then comes Sukkot. So the Ria Kodesh says that the psukim in Shir HaShirim refer to the Yomim Tovim. Smoiloi tachas roishi v'yamino techabkeini. So Shir HaShirim is allegory. It is about the story between two lovers, and that is the story of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and we. That is what the Rambam writes in the 10th Perek of Hilchos Tshuva. When the Rambam defines Ahavas Hashem, the Rambam writes, Kol Sefer Shir HaShirim is a moshel to the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his beloved children. Smoiloi tachas roishi, v'yaminoi techapkeini. Small doche v'yamin mekarevet. Small always alludes to din. Yamin is rachamim. Small doche v'yamin mekarevet. Smoiloi tachas roishi says the Riyah Kodesh, that is the Yomim Neroam, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. These are days of judgment. These are days of din. Yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu merachem bedin. He has mercy when he judges us. But fundamentally, Yomim Neroam are days of judgment. They are days of din. Yeminoi techapkeini is Sukkot. Yemin is rachamim. The minimal requirement of a sukkah is shnayim v'tefach. You need two proper walls, each of them 7 tefachim. The third wall is 1 tefach. So the Riyah Kodesh says when you hug a person, your upper arm and your lower arm are like 2 mechitzas, and then your hand is like a tefach. And that is the remez of Yaminoi techapkeini. Smoiloi tachas roishi is midas adin, that's Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Yaminoi techapkeini, that is Sukkot. And the remez of a hug is you embrace a person. So the palm of your hand is half the size of your upper arm and your lower arm. That is shtei mechitzos v'tefach. And then Simchat Torah is Yeshukeini min hashikos pi, and that is the highest level of love. And Oshana Raba leads from Zman Simchoseinu, from Sukkot to Simchat Torah. So what is unique about Oshana Raba is the combination of Simcha and Yira. To Simcha and Yira, or fright and joy, could they come together? Rabbeinu Yoina Mesechet Brochas Daf Chof Aleph Medape Harif. That's the beginning of the Perek Ein Oimdem Lehesparel Elo Metoch Simcha Shel Mitzvah. Chazal say when a person starts his tefillas, his prayers, it should be Metoch Simcha Shel Mitzvah and Metoch Koived Roish. And the Gemara brings the posuk Vegilu Berodo. You should rejoice in trembling. And Rabbeinu Yoina asks, could a person really be joyous when he is in fright? By nature, when a person is afraid, he cannot be very happy. And Rabbeinu Yoina says that is correct in any other nature of fright, but not by Yiras Hashem. That is about awe and not about fear. So when we feel Yirat Shamayim, it should intensify, magnify, and multiply our Simcha. And Yirat Shamayim should not contradict Simcha. How happy should we be? How lucky should we feel that we are in awe of HaKadosh Baruch Hu? There's a beautiful passage in Tone de Be'eliyahu Rabba Pere Gimel. And just to explain what is Tone de Be'eliyahu, the Gemara says in Ksubas Dav Kuvav, it is Divrei Torah that Eliyahu Hanavi shared with one of the Ameroim, whose name was Rav Anan. And in Pere Gimel in Tone de Be'eliyahu, he says, Yoresi mitoich simchosi v'samachti b'yirati. I was in awe in my simcha, and I was happy. I was gratified by the awe that I experienced and felt. And that is what Hoshana Rabbah is all about. the simcha of Chol HaMoed, together with a feeling of judgment. What is the very earliest source about Hoshana Rabbah? When did Oshana Raba morph from being just another day of Chol HaMoed Sukkot to a very special day which combines Yom Meroim and Shalosh Regalim? It is in the Zohar and Parshas Vayechi. So we are all familiar with the Gemara, and we actually quote that Gemara in Nesana Toikev, in the tefillas that we say in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. But Rosh Hashanah Yekosevun, u'b'yoyim Tzoyim Kippur Yechoseimun. So the verdict is written on Rosh Hashanah. It is sealed on Yom Kippur. So what more? What more is there to do? So the Zohar says, yes, the Piskei Din, the verdicts are written up, but they are not sent out to be administered till Oshana Raba. And until Oshana Raba, you could still appeal. In every legal system in the world, there's a possibility to appeal, and the same is B'din Shemayim. The verdict is sealed on Yom Kippur. You could still turn over. You could still appeal. Because the Piskei Din aren't given over to the messengers until Oshana Raba. But this brings us to an interesting dilemma. Because the Zohar in Parshas Vayechi says that Mesiras HaPiskin is Shmini Atzeres, and that is Simchas Torah, not the day before. So Reb Chaim Vital, the great disciple of the Riyah Kodesh and Shara Kavonis, explains, it is Oshana Raba that the verdicts are given over to the messengers, but the messengers are not enabled to carry out any verdict until Simchas Torah. So Oshana Raba is the day of appeals, and you could still fix whatever needs to be fixed. And when Simcha comes together with Yira, that is the most powerful tool in our toolbox. As I quoted before, the Zohar says, the Chilu and Rechimu enrich one another. And any mitzvah that lacks either Simcha or Yira doesn't go up to the heavens. So the highest madrege, the highest level of the Dveikus in HaKadosh Baruch Hu is when Simcha touches Yira. When awe and joy combine and come together. And that is Hoshana Raba. And that's why this is a very special day. And this is the last day of Chag HaSukkos before we go over to Simchas Torah. So Shmini Atzeres is a Yom Tov that has no mitzvahs. And it barely fits into the pattern of Chodesh Tishrei. Because all the other days and Moyadim, Yom Tovim of Tishrei, have extremely significant mitzvahs. Rosh Hashanah is fundamentally about Kiyas Shofar. Yom Kippur is about fasting. And in Sukkot we have both the Sukkah and Daled Minim. And then the climax, it should be a climax, is Simchas Torah. And Simchas Torah we have nothing. Simchas Torah we have nothing because Simchas Torah we have everything. And everything is all-encompassing. What is Shmini Atzeres about? Is it coincidence that Shmini Atzeres became Simchas Torah? So we rejoice Simchas Torah because we end reading the Torah. Why and who decided to end reading the Torah on Simchas Torah, on Shmini Atzeres? Is that coincidence? Definitely not. Shmini Atzeres was designated to be Simchas Torah. And that is why the minig hundreds, thousands of years ago was to be Messiah Torah's Moshe on Shmini Atzeres. It's not that Simchat Torah is because we're Messiah, the Torah is the other way around. Because Shmini Atzeres in its very nature is Simchat Torah. That is why the minig is to be Messiah, the Torah, on Shmini Atzeres. Zeh hayom osu Hashem nogilo v'nismachu boi. The Medrash in Shir Shirim says, Zeh hayom osu Hashem, that's Shmini Atzeres. Where is this posuk written? In Sefer Tehillim. Zeh hayom osu Hashem nogilo v'nismachu bo. And Medrash says, we don't know how to explain or interpret this posuk. Zeh hayom osu Hashem nogilo v'nismachu bo. Does bo mean bo b'Kodesh Baruch Hu, or does bo mean bo bayom? Because the beginning of the posuk refers both to the day and to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Zeh hayom osu Hashem nogilo v'nismachu bo. What does bo mean? Do we rejoice in HaKadosh Baruch Hu or rejoice in the day? And the Medrash says, what David failed to explain, his son Shlomo filled in. And in the very first perek in Shir Hashirim, the posuk says, Hiviyani hamelech chadorov, nogilo v'nismachu bach. Not bo, but bach. And this posuk doesn't refer to a day. Hiviyani hamelech chadorov. HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought us into his inner chambers. Nogilo v'nismachu bach. We rejoice with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then the Medrash says, Bach is Chav Beis. You probably could imagine or guess what Chav Beis means. There are 22 letters in the Holy Jewish alphabet. In Lashon HaKodesh there are 22 letters. Hiviyani HaMelech HaDorov, Nogilo v'nismachu Bach. Bach b'toirascho. So Shmini Atzeres is about rejoicing with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And that is above and beyond any specific mitzvah. So Shmini Atzeres is everything. It is not nothing. It is rejoicing with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. How does one dance with the Kodesh Baruch Hu? Einoi guf. V'lo yasiguhu masigai haguf. The closest you could come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is His Torah. So on Simchat Torah, when each and every one of you hugs that Sefer Torah and kisses that Sefer Torah and dances with that Sefer Torah, you need to feel we're dancing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One cannot hug HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but we could hug and kiss His Torah. And that is as close one could come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Shmini Atzeres is about Zeh hayom osu Hashem nogilo v'nismachu bo, and we wonder what bo means. Shlomo HaMelech interprets the posuk of his father. Hiviyani HaMelech HaDorov, that's Sukkot. Sukkot we come into HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Sukkah. And then nogilo v'nismachu bo. That is the climax. That's Shmini Atzeres. So Shmini Atzeres doesn't lack a mitzvah because Shmini Atzeres is about rejoicing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the closest we could get to dancing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the Sefer Torah. Nogilo v'nismachu bach is Chaf Beis Oisius Shebet Torah. So we embarked on this journey almost a month ago. Rosh Hashanah is the very first day of Aseret Yemei Tshuva. We actually embarked on this journey almost 2 months ago, and that was Rosh Chodesh Elul. And from Elul we went to Slichas and to Erev Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, getting closer and closer. So 10 days of awe, 7 days of Simcha Yesera, culminating in Oshana Raba, which is the combination of the awe of Aseret Yemei Tshuva and the Simcha of Sukkot. And it is only then, only after this awesome preparation that we could actually approach Shmini Atzeres and Simchat Torah. And that is the real climax of Chodesh Tishrei, or rather of Elul and Tishrei. Nogila v'nismacho bach. And this is the day we dance and rejoice with HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. It is all-encompassing. It is above and beyond Tkiyah Shofar and fasting and lulav and sukkah. And the only way to express this level of dveikus is the Torah itself. And that is why Shmini Atzeres is actually Simchas Torah. And it is not coincidence. It is the way it was meant to be. Shmini Atzeres is the day we rejoice with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the closest one could get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is learning His Torah, loving His Torah, toiling in His Torah, and that is the highest level of the Dveikus. 7 days of Sukkot, we sit in the Sukkah. And at the Sukkah, we have the concept of Ushpizin. Every day, we invite another of the giants of yore, the giants of our Emunah. Avraham, Yitzchak, Yankov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, David. That's as close as you could get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in Sukkot. Simchas Torah is about Torah. Tone de Bei Eliyahu Perek Yud Ches, and I'm quoting. Kol Talmid Sheyoshev v'Koira v'Oisik b'Torah. Any student, any Talmud that really learns Torah, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev Kenegdoi v'Oisik Imoi. He needs to feel as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu was sitting right next to him and learning together with him. That is an awesome feeling. Frightening, but uplifting as well. And then the Tona de Belio has a line, Kol Talmud, Sheyoshev v'Koira v'Yosik b'Torah, Kadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev Kenegda v'Yosik Imoi. Ilo molei dover zakosov asur hayala umro v'kola umro chayev misa. If this would not be written and not transmitted by Eliyahu Hanavi, we wouldn't be able to say this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev Kenegdoi v'Oisik Imai. And anybody that would dare to say this sentence would be playing with fire. Ilo molei dover zakosov. Asur hayala umro, v'kola umro chaya misa. And in my Tony de Baliyu, I wrote a little note. Mishedover zakosov, mitzvah la'omroi, v'kola omroi, zoicha l'chaim tovim. If it wouldn't be written, one could never say such a line. If it is written, we all should say it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yoshev Keneged v'Yosek Yimoi. And that is dveikes on a far higher level than the ushpizin in your sukkah. That is as close as one could get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu only by dveikes in his Torah. And that is what Torah means to us as a people, as a nation, as communities, and as individuals. זה היה עמוסו השם, נוגילה ונשמחו בו. הביאני המלך הדורוב, נוגילה ונשמחו בך. We rejoice in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How? Chof beis oisiyas shebetorah. So, I understand you have a full night of Divrei Torah and of Shurim. I hope you're going to have a very meaningful davening tomorrow. And remember, this is a day that is unique. We have no other in the year. A day in which we combine everything we worked on in this magnificent month. The combination of awe of a Aseret Yemei Tshuva and the Simcha of Sukkot. It all comes together in Hoshana Raba. And after a very special day like Hoshana Raba, we feel ready for Simchat Torah. And Simchat Torah is the real climax of Yerech Veisanim. Simchat Torah is the day that we dance with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the only way to dance with HaKadosh Baruch Hu is to dance with His Torah. So my bracha to all of you, all our precious Talmidim and all our precious friends, take advantage of this very special day, and we should rejoice with the Torah all year round. So in my shul, by Ne'ilas HaChag, every year we have a Siyum HaShas. And it is the highlight of the year in our shul. And I once explained the minhag of Hakafas Shnius. Simchas Torah, we dance Hakafas by night and once again by day. It is hundreds of years that there's a minhag of Hakafas Shnius. After Marav Meitzoi Yom Tov, we get together again and we dance. So Chazal say, what is Shmini Atzeres about? After a wonderful Yom Tov of Sukkot, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, now, Kindalach, my precious children, let's just spend one more day together. 7 days of Sukkot is Shivim Purim Keneged U'Mesuolam. It is a general feast, but the last day, the king says to his family, to his beloved children, wait another day. You know, these festivals were too big. I just want to enjoy you as family. So Shmini Atzeres, Chazal say, Itzru Badi. Let's be together one more day. Just me and you, Kadosh Baruch Hu says to his children. Kosha alai pridaschem. Kosha alai pridaschem. By a Kofar Shnius, we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Father in heaven, Avinu Shebeshamayim, לא רק עליך קשה הפרידה, עלינו זה קשה שבעתיים. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, קשה עלי פרידתכם, we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Rabbeinu Shel Olam, as hard it is for you to say goodbye, it's just as hard to us. The sky is black, 1,000 stars shining out of the heavens. It's way beyond Simchas Torah, but we still dance with a Sefer Torah. It's hard to say goodbye. It's hard to say goodbye to such a magnificent month, to such a magnificent Yom Tov. It's hard to say goodbye to Simchas Torah. And it's hard to put that Sefer Torah back into the Oren Kodesh. And I always have tears in my eyes after that Kofar Shnius, when I stand on the steps of the Oren Kodesh and I put the last Sefer Torah into the Oren Kodesh, and I close the doors, and I close the curtain. It's always a hard feeling. But then I say, there's a limit how long feet could dance. Sooner or later, they get tired. There is no limit how long a heart can dance. So when we put away the Sefer Torahs, and we no longer dance, but our hearts and our minds continue to sing the song of Torah and to dance to the beautiful tunes of Talmud Torah Bebeis HaMedrash. And that's my bracha to all of you. Good Yom Tov, and a good Moed, and a good Kvittel. You should all have a Piska Tova. We should only share B'Seides Tovos.